In another case, another political battle, tomorrow voters will have their say in Michigan's Senate Democratic primary. Moderate Democratic Congresswoman Haley Stevens is facing off against former public health official, progressive Abdul El-Sayed. Now, the race has turned into a huge reflection of tensions within the Democratic Party. CNN chief data analyst Harry Enten joining us now. All right, Harry, who looks to be the favorite in this particular battle in Michigan? A big thing because people are looking at it as, again, is this a harbinger for things to come?
Yeah, I think that tomorrow Abdul El-Sayed will deliver the biggest blow so far against the establishment of the Democratic Party because he is the heavy favorite going into tomorrow. Just take a look at the prediction market odds. Okay, chance to be the Michigan Democratic Senate nominee, Abdul El-Sayed. Look at this. He's up to a 98% chance according to the Kalshi prediction markets, way up like a rocket compared to where he was on April 3rd when he was just a 28% chance just a few months ago. The bottom line is this. You look at all the data that is out there, Abdul El-Sayed is the very heavy favorite going in tomorrow. And of course, he is backed by a lot of folks on the left wing of the Democratic Party. And at this point, as I said at the beginning, he looks tomorrow to deliver the biggest blow so far against the establishment wing of the Democratic Party.
Give us some sense of just the amount of anger that is there, really at incumbents, not at, just a particular person, but at incumbents, at people who are the establishment.
Sarah, I think this is part of a larger story within the Democratic Party, right? That is why tomorrow is so key for understanding where the Democratic Party is right now. And you can see it nationally. What do Democrats want? Democrat and Democratic leaners who think the party needs at least major changes. Look at this. In 2022, it was just 33%. Look where it is now. The clear majority of Democratic voters are those who lean towards the Democratic Party. 57%. A clear majority believe that the party needs at least major changes. No wonder what we've seen so far is incumbents go down to defeat the House of Representatives. No wonder what we've seen so far this Democratic primary season is the establishment losing and losing and losing again in key races. And no wonder that Abdul El-Sayed is favored tomorrow because the Democratic Party's voters at this point are so upset with the establishment. They're saying anything else, please. And Abdul El-Sayed, who just 8 years ago during Trump's first term got blown out running for Michigan governor against Gretchen Whitmer, tomorrow is the heavy favorite because simply put, the Democratic Party is looking for something new, and they are looking to go against Haley Stevens most likely tomorrow, who of course is a sitting congresswoman.
I do want to ask you just how motivated Dems are. Where's the energy? How motivated are they to go out and vote? Because numbers matter.
Yeah, numbers matter. Who in the Democratic Party is motivated to turn out and vote this election season? The energy right now is on the left wing of the Democratic Party where Abdul El-Sayed is. Just take a look here. Okay, Dems extremely motivated to vote. Look at this. 80%, 4 in 5 of those who identify as very liberal say they are extremely motivated to turn out and vote. Compare that to all others within the Democratic Party. A significantly lower chunk, just 3 in 5, 59%. Abdul El-Sayed kind of comes together, puts it all together as an outsider, comes from the populist progressive wing in the party, and that's why I think tomorrow he is the heavy favorite. And if he does, as I said at the beginning of this segment, it would be the biggest blow against the Democratic establishment so far, sort of culmination of all the factors we've seen this primary season.
This is certainly bubbling up, and then you, of course, have the general, and that's a whole different thing.
We will discuss
that. We'll discuss that later.
We'll discuss that later. Let's set the primary first.
Got to get through the primary first. These are really interesting numbers. Wow.
Yeah.
Harry, thank you so much.
Thank you.
How do we expect it to shake out?
Well, Pamela, this Democratic primary here in Michigan really encapsulates the debates not just playing out in Michigan, but also within the Democratic Party on the national level. This contest has really laid bare the party's progressive versus establishment divisions, also the debate over what it means to be electable, and also how the Democratic Party views the U.S. Handling an approach to Israel. But really, this contest is going to be a major test for the progressive movement, which has seen success in blue areas like New York City and Denver, but now is trying to replicate some of that success here in a battleground state that has flipped between parties in the presidential contest. On the progressive side, you have Abdul El-Sayed, a former state health official who has embraced policy positions like Medicare for all. He has campaigned here in the state with the likes of Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Then you have Congresswoman Haley Stevens, who had flipped a Republican-held seat back in 2018, and she is really the more moderate establishment type of candidate in this race. She has the backing of the retiring Senator Gary Peters, as well as the state's Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Both of those candidates spent the past 24 hours campaigning right here in Detroit, which could very well help determine how this primary plays out. Take a listen to a bit of their message for voters yesterday.
But the notion that we've been able to build a movement, not about me, but about what we all want, money out of politics, money in our pocket, Medicare for all, that has resonated with the state, that to me is the greatest privilege of all.
The GOP should be worried about running against me. Because friends, I am a tough as nails Democrat. I'm going to run through anyone and anything to protect and defend our state.
Now, the road to the next Senate majority very well could go through here in Michigan. Democrats would need to hold on to Michigan and flip 4 Republican-held seats. And this primary will provide a window in who the Democratic Party feels should be their nominee to take on what's expected to be the Republican candidate, Mike Rogers, in November.
Tomorrow is the biggest test yet for the far left, trying to shove aside establishment Democrats. In Michigan, millions of Democrats will choose between progressive public health expert Abdul El-Sayed and the more moderate Congresswoman Haley Stevens. To paraphrase Joe Biden, it's a battle for the soul of the Democratic Party. Jeff Zeleny is in Michigan. So, Jeff, with just a few hours left, the El-Sayed camp seems to be feeling pretty good about their chances.
Manu, there's no doubt that they feel some energy and a momentum on their side. Part of that is really what's been happening in Democratic primaries throughout the country this year. But this is a different moment and it's a different state. It's battleground Michigan. So that is why neither campaign advisors that I've been speaking to are all that confident going into election day. There's a lot of a trepidation here. I caught up with both candidates over the weekend, and it's clear they are fighting for every vote and trying to make this nationalized race more about Michigan. Well, the Congresswoman has made clear that she knows she's been a bit of a punchline here in this race, her accent and other things. She's leaning into that as she's trying to bring out her supporters.
This is East Coast people making fun of how I talk. And how many times have we really heard that in our lives? You know, when we visit other places, they comment on our accent. Where are you from? Whether they're making fun of me or they're just making fun of Michigan, they don't get to think they're better than us. Because what I know is I am your voice, and I'm eager to be your voice. The jokes, they just make me want to fight harder.
So Stevens clearly is making the case that she is pure Michigan, that she has represented the state since 2018. Of course, she flipped a Republican-held House seat back in the first midterm election of the first Trump administration. But this is certainly a different time for the Democratic Party. There's no doubt about it. Some of that energy that is behind Abdul El-Sayed's campaign also was clear, even as questions of electability really are hanging over this. We asked him about that as well.
Is that electability is about whether or not you can inspire a movement of people to want to elect you. I mean, frankly, if you have to bring $70 million of outside spending into your race, you are foundationally unelectable on your own terms. So, to me, the vision I have for electability is one where you can inspire a movement of people around a set of ideals that allows you then to go out and legislate around those goals, right? That's what electability means to me.
So he also goes on to say that he thinks that some of this electability argument here, that Haley Stevens and the Democratic establishment behind her is pushing pretty aggressively. He thinks it's a bit of a loaded question here. He believes that Michiganders will elect him. And he said, an elected official always says that electability is on their side, but he, of course, is running from the outside. But he also talked specifically about his own upbringing and his own background, of course, even going back to when he was a high school student at the time of 9/11 and how he was embraced. So if he would be elected, he would be the first Muslim elected to the U.S. Senate here. So for all of the outside currents going on in this race here, the progressive versus the insurgent, talking about funding for Israel, it is also about Michigan issues. It's about affordability. And Manu, it is very clear here in the final hours of this race, both of these candidates are campaigning only with Michigan people at their side. They're trying to make this race about Michigan. Of course, for national Democrats, it's about far more than that.
Yeah, no question
Manu?
about it. The divides are very, very pronounced. Jeff Zeleny from Lansing, thank you so much. My panel is back. Tia, how much fear is there in this town among Democratic leaders about what may turn out tomorrow?
A lot of fear, and I think their fear is rooted in the fact that the polling, the excitement, the intention seems to be favoring El Sayed. Now, of course, it's Michigan voters get the final say, and we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Haley Stevens could pull it out, but, I think she's the underdog right now, and they are concerned about electability. They are concerned that someone as progressive as him, I think we cannot ignore the fact that he's a Muslim and a person of color, and people's concerns that will not be palatable to voters in the middle. And so there's just a lot of concern about electability, and I just think it's not just his messaging that makes Democrats concerned.
We often hear, though, the issue of electability coming from leaders of both parties, and they tend to lean towards the more centrist candidate. Is this environment different, though, given how much the environment is souring on Trump and his party? Can a progressive in this environment do what the Democratic leaders think that he can't do?
Absolutely, and he's very good. I mean, I remember when you did the interview with him. He's very good. He's good on his feet. He's a good candidate. I think he's a lock. Honestly, I think the polls. I don't think it's that close. I mean, a lot of the polls have him up double digits.
Yeah.
I mean, some their internals. Oh, it's close. I don't think it's that close. The thing to me is Whitmer and Schumer and everybody else has been so hard behind Stevens. Can they turn it around in 90 days and be like, oh yeah, we want El Sayed, of course. He's
we were behind him the whole time.
Yeah, we love him. This guy here's our guy.
Right.
So for me, this is a very difficult point for them. I do think that Mike Rogers, the Republican candidate, he's going to have to defend Trump. It's going to be, the race is going to be, El Sayed has all this baggage, and it's versus Trump and the economy in Michigan. And I think it's a fascinating race.
And when we see this divide play out throughout this race on the issues, among the candidates, and among some of the surrogates, Hassan Piker, the controversial left-wing podcaster, streamer, has campaigned with Abdul El-Sayed. He's campaigned with other of the more progressive candidates in the House and House races as well. And this is what James Carville, of course, the famous Clinton strategist, said about Hassan Piker and whether there's room in the party for both of them.
I am not going to be in the same party with Hassan Piker. I can tell you that right now. If he becomes a force in the Democratic Party, I'm out of here. I have no intention of ever being in the same political party with that guy. One of us is going to leave. It might even be me.
Look, I think that this is all part of what we've been talking about now for the last several years, which is the Democrat identity crisis, and you're seeing it play out in real time right here. I will also say that the White House is very happy if El Sayed wins today or tomorrow. They really strongly want that candidate in place to run against Mike Rogers. And while Rogers will have to defend Donald Trump, they do believe that their messaging is perfectly fit for that race specifically, which is, do you really want these far left activists in office? Looking at a state that is very much centric, and Mike Rogers, who didn't get a job in the administration because he was too center and not MAGA enough.
Yeah. And to that point, they want El Sayed to win. Mike Rogers was out with a web ad this weekend going after El Sayed, and you can see the argument coming from him already if El Sayed is the nominee.